start this interview with an introduction. Can you give us a brief intro about yourself?
Hello viewers, my name is Padun and I'm a practicing advocate in the sessions industry called Pasighat. I pursued my master's in the subject constitution. I think as a legal personnel, I think it's my duty to come forward, put my voice out there, wherein legal aspects are needed. And I think as a legal professional, we are well equipped to navigate through the legal processes. And also by doing so, we can make a profound impact in the society by imparting knowledge or say legal awareness or legal consciousness in the society. But today I'm here for a very specific reason, which is I want to put my point of view on a very recent and tragic incident that has happened with late Olip Litin Mukherjee, who lost his life in a rehabilitation center in Pasighat. Before taking the questions of the media fraternity, I would like to first very briefly speak on a subject, rehabilitation. Because of the recent incident that has happened, the legal perspective or say how the general public perceive such institutions must have been drastically changed. And which is why I feel that one such odious incident should not completely change the meaning and defeat the very objective of such rehabilitation centers which are very successfully running and conducting in a very professional manner. So the word rehabilitation, it has been originated from a Latin word rehabilitate, which means to make able again. किसी भी चीज़ को वापस से सक्षम बनाना. So what this rehabilitation center it does is, it helps the community by addressing certain health needs, diseases, or say well-being, or even mental conditions. The main idea behind rehabilitation was that because no person is born as a criminal, which is why they should be given a second chance in the society and should be reintegrated into the society and given a chance to be a law-abiding citizen.
Ma'am, just like now you said, if rehabilitation centers hold such an upright objective for the welfare of society, then what do you think is the reason behind such failure in this case of late Olip Litin Mukherjee?
I believe that as much as the perpetrator is to be blamed for in this instant case, even this part of failure on the administration as well. Because while granting licenses to any rehabilitation owner, there should be a very standard of procedure that the administration should follow. But in this very case, they have neglected it. Now, what is standard procedure? It basically ensures that whoever is being granted license is working in such a condition that fulfills the government's guidelines and requirements. By doing so, such negligence could have been avoided. So in our state, Arunachal Pradesh, there is no such SOP standard of procedure while granting licenses to any rehabilitation center. So which is why I would like to make a humble appeal to the administration that for them to incorporate such SOP, first that it should have a very definitive clause wherein the owner of the rehabilitation very clearly mentions that what is the objective and what is the mission. Also have a legal requirement such as say registration or documentation. If it is a trust, then it should be registered under the Trust Act 1882, and if it is a society, then it should be registered in the Societies Act 1886. If we talk about the document, there should be a MOA, Memorandum of Association. There should be a bylaws or say rules and regulations formulated, a list of founding members, detailed bank account, valid address proof. There should be a governing council. They should form a board of trustees as a managing committees, and also there should be a prescribed rules and regulations, and their responsibilities should be prescribed as well. Now the most important aspect I would say is recruitment of the staff, whether or not the staff that has been recruited in such rehabilitation, whether they're highly qualified and whether they're equipped to handle any emergency crisis or say medical crisis. And there should be a training program for such staffs also. There should be a clause for accountability as well. So what happens when we incorporate such clause of accountability? The person who's granting the license, the licensing authority, as well as who's applying for such license, they both can be held accountable for their actions. Now there should be a clause of legal regulations also. If anybody is seen to be non-complying with such rules of granting license, then a strict legal action should be taken. Now, I think the responsibility of the administration does not end here, or say it should not be exhausted to this only. Even after the granting of license, there should be certain responsibility of the administration, such as making routine checkups, unannounced inspection. So by doing this, they can ensure that whether or not the rehabilitation center is adhering to the licensing laws, or if it is maintaining a high standard, even if the fund that has been allocated to such rehabilitation, whether it's been utilized in a proper manner or not.
The WASE organization, Women Against Social Evil, has been performing really well in the past years. That is, raising their voice against drug abuses. Why do you think the negligence was shown in this case only?
I think an idiom fits the situations very perfectly. So the idiom is missing the forest while looking for the trees. So what the meaning of this phrase is, you're trying to do the correct thing, but then you're overlooking the important details, and hence resulting into a very miserable failure in order to achieve your goal. I think the negligence that has been done by the WASE member in this instant cases, that they had overlooked the procedures. They had taken the laws in their own hand. Otherwise, they would have very meticulously followed the rules and regulations laid down by law. The outcome would have been different. Now, I would also like to humbly give the WASE organization a suggestion from my side, which would be, I think it would be very beneficial for the WASE organization if they could consult, or say be under the tutelage of DLSA, which is the District Legal Service Authority. By doing so, what they can benefit from is they can learn about their basic legal procedure, and by doing so, they can maintain their integrity, and also their work ethics would not violate any other individual's right.
Can a private person or an NGO, like in this case of late Olip Litin Mukherjee, can an NGO apprehend a drug peddler or a user without involving the police in this case? No? And if they are not allowed to do so, what is the procedure for it?
First of all, the NGO or any institution of such sort does not have any right or lawful authority admit the individual to any rehab center. Was that your question? Did I suffice it?
Yes. Now, what's the procedure? What's the legal procedure for it?
So the legal procedure is you inform the police. Now see, when it comes to arresting a person, the Indian law, it gives this right, this specific authority to arrest to two individuals. The first is police and the second is magistrate. Now what happens in certain situations, this specific authority to arrest can also be conferred to a private individual. The private individual, in his presence, a cognizable offense has been committed. Now, provided this, the condition here is that the person arrested should be made over or handed over to a police officer within just 6 hours of making such arrest, and without any unnecessary delay. If in any case this is not possible or feasible for the person to commit or made over such arrested person to the police, then he can do so by presenting such person to the nearest police station.
Okay, ma'am. So, given that the deceased, the Olip Litin Mukherjee was 21 years old, which is the legal age in India, do you think his mother's signature in the admission form of the rehabilitation center was relevant in this case?
The consent that is to be acquired from the parents, as you asked, it is only relevant or comes into play, as I said, when the person is a minor or below the age of 18 years in India, or a person of unsound mind who cannot form his own rational thinking. Only in such cases, the consent of the parents or the guardian is required. Other than that, if we talk about this case, the consent that was required was the consent of his own he should have voluntarily admitted to getting himself admitted in the rehab. But that is not the case, I believe. Yes.
मैम ये आपसे ये सवाल रहेगा हमारा कि रिसेंटली जब हमने वो विक्टिम के माँ को भी इंटरव्यू लिया और वहाँ से टीम से भी इंटरव्यू लिया, तब वहाँ से टीम का कहना था कि माँ जो खुद आकर साइन किया है वहाँ पर रिहाब पर, फिर विक्टिम का माँ कहता है कि उसने कुछ साइन नहीं किया। अभी वहाँ से टीम की तरफ से एक सिग्नेचर अभी दिखाता है जो हमने अपना चैनल में भी दिखाया है। तो अगर इनकेस ये सिग्नेचर जब गलत निकला तो क्या वहाँ से टीम को क्या पनिशमेंट मिल सकता है लीगली?
See, I think I'm not the right person to answer that because that has to be adjudicated in the court of law. But once, if he is proved that he has forged the sign, then he will obviously receive the relevant punishment. I think for forgery it is 2 years and also liable to fine.
और ये साथ में ये भी क्वेश्चन होगा कि जो रिहाब का मालिक है इसमें इन्वॉल्व हुआ कि नहीं, ये तो हमें एग्जैक्टली अभी कंफर्म नहीं है, पर भी अगर इनकेस ये खत्म होने के बाद, इन्वेस्टिगेशन खत्म होने के बाद, क्या रिहाब का मालिक को क्या सजा मिल सकता है?
As I mentioned earlier, I think I'm not the right person to address that. It is the court who is going to make judgments on it by evaluating and taking into consideration certain evidences. Now, if the person is, say, proved to be guilty, then since this person we're talking about, his book under section 103, subsection 1 of...
Subsection 1, 103 subsection 1 and
Yes.
section 3 subsection
Okay.
5.
Okay, so he's booked under 103 of
Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita.
yes, Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, right? So the punishment that is prescribed for this particular section is death or imprisonment for life, and he shall also be fined, liable to fine.
And that will be evaluated only by the court.
Yes, correct.
Any more questions?
जो अभी 11 एक्यूज पकड़ा गया है, क्या उन सभी को इसे पनिशमेंट से इक्वल पनिशमेंट मिलेगा?
Since they have been booked under section 3, subsection 1, I believe, of the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, so it says that act done in furtherance of a common intention. So yes, अगर common intention मिलेगा, so they will be punished within the relevant section of law, that is 103.
जैसे कि मैं कोई भी अपने बच्चों को रिहाब में रखना चाहिए तो उसको क्या क्या रिहाब में होना चाहिए? मैं क्या माँ जो भी पेरेंट्स अपने बच्चों को रखना चाहेंगे जो भी रिहाब में, तो रिहाब में क्या क्या फैसिलिटीज को देना चाहिए?
So the parents, while admitting their children to any rehabilitation, there are certain aspect that they needs to look very closely at and should not neglect. I think the first thing would be if that facility, whether that rehabilitation center, whether it is a legitimate one or not, whether it is providing the appropriate care to your child that your child requires, whether it is safe for your child. Also I think I would like to add some point on it. I think that parents should also ensure that whether or not that particular rehabilitation center it is working under a valid license granted by the or issued by the relevant authority. Now second, even the health and safety measures should be looked at, and whether or not the staffs that has been recruited under such rehabilitation, whether or not they possesses or they have any degree, say certification, current certification I'm talking about. Also whether or not such rehabilitation they are complying with the rules and regulations that has been formulated by the government. If that is not the case, then you shouldn't be. One more thing I would like to add, I'm very sorry. Giving or saying, keeping in consideration the section of people in Arunachal Pradesh who are not literate enough, So I think for that purpose, because they cannot read and evaluate what exactly is written, I think there should be a copy that should be affixed to the conspicuous part of their rehabilitation center, and it should be mandated by the administration that whenever such person comes in order to admit their child or say any relative for the purpose, one staff member of such rehabilitation should read out all the clauses of such rehabilitation so that he could understand whether or not I should consider admitting my child to such rehabilitation.
That's a good point, ma'am. Okay. Now my last question to you would be that now after the case, what are the remedies that the victim's family can avail?
Under the Indian law, there are various compensation. Okay, so I'm going to specifically point out few of them. The first would be section 395 of the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Samhita 2023. So 395, section 395, subsection 1b, it talks about when the court is pronouncing a judgment in order to impose a fine, then it will take into consideration whether if any person has been affected by any crime and due to such effect he has made to go through some injury or say some loss, then he shall be eligible enough to make a application in the civil court. Now I'll come to the second one, which is section 396, subsection 1 of the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Samhita. So this one, it talks about the central government along with the state government, they will come together, formulate a scheme wherein person who has been affected by any crime can make their application and avail their compensation. Now, since there are many schemes given by the state government and the central government, if some person is finding it difficult to go through the legal process, I think they should avail the help of legal aid, and they would, of course, give a legal support and help the victim or say the surviving family of the victim to navigate through the legal process in order to avail the compensation.
Is there anything you would like to say to the people, educate our viewers on?
Definitely, I would like to conclude this interview by stating that people should raise their voices no matter what. I think not having legal knowledge or say interpretation, this should not be a barrier to bind yourself and not put out your voice. Wherein there's an inability or say incompetence of the general public in the legal interpretation, this is where I think the legal professionals should step in and also build a bridge to the gap between the law and society. And by doing so, they can ensure that the people are being fairly treated and also their rights are being protected. Thank you.